Cerberus. Cerberus is the original security system of the underworld, and it makes every modern guard dog look embarrassing by comparison. This three-headed beast stood at the gates of Hades with one job: nothing living gets in, nothing dead gets out. Each head is described as snarling independently, and some early Greek texts actually gave him 50 or even 100 heads before tradition settled on 3. His tail was a live serpent, and his mane was said to writhe with snakes. Despite being one of the most terrifying creatures in mythology, he was defeated multiple times in famously humiliating ways. Hercules simply wrestled him into submission as the 12th of his labors, dragging him into daylight before returning him. Orpheus put all 3 heads to sleep by playing his lyre. The Sibyl drugged him with a honey cake laced with herbs. He also appears in Dante's Inferno as the guardian of the third circle, where he tears apart the souls of gluttons who endlessly regenerate, locked in a loop of being shredded and made whole again for eternity. Charon. Charon is the ferryman who moves the dead from the world of the living to the world of the dead, and he is not doing it out of kindness. He required payment, specifically a coin called an obol placed on the eyes or in the mouth of the deceased before burial. Families who skip this step condemn their loved ones to wander the riverbank for 100 years before being allowed to cross. Ancient Greeks took this seriously enough that the burial coin became a standard funeral practice. Charon is described in most sources as filthy, ancient, and frightening, wearing tattered robes and rowing with furious energy across the rivers Styx and Acheron. Dante kept him in the Inferno almost unchanged, where he beats reluctant souls with his oar to force them onto the boat. In Virgil's Aeneid, the hero Aeneas bribed him with a golden bow to get passage while still alive, which was the kind of loophole Charon apparently had no choice but to accept. Hades. Hades is one of the most misunderstood figures in all of mythology because he is not evil, not a torturer, and not the Greek version of the devil. He is an administrator. As the brother of Zeus and Poseidon, he drew the short straw in the division of the cosmos and received dominion over the dead, a realm he ruled with strict impartiality. He wore the helm of darkness, which rendered him invisible, and he commanded every shade, spirit, and creature in the underworld. The Greeks feared him so much they avoided saying his name aloud, referring to him instead by euphemisms like Pluton, meaning the wealthy one, a reference to the mineral riches buried underground. He rarely left his realm and had little interest in the affairs of the living. His most dramatic act was abducting Persephone and making her his queen, which according to the myth is the reason winter exists. Zeus eventually forced a compromise and Persephone spends part of the year above ground and part below. The Furies. The Furies, or Erinyes, are 3 goddesses of vengeance so ancient they predate the Olympians themselves, born from the blood of Uranus when he was castrated. Their names are Alecto, Megaera, and Tisiphone, and their job is to pursue and punish anyone who commits crimes against blood relatives, particularly those who murder their own parents. They do not deliver a clean death. They drive their targets to complete psychological collapse, following them relentlessly until madness takes hold. They are depicted with snakes writhing from their hair, bat wings spreading behind them, and eyes that drip blood. The hero Orestes was famously hunted to the edge of sanity by them after killing his mother Clytemnestra, even though he did so to avenge his father. They were eventually pacified and renamed the Eumenides, the kindly ones, as a polite fiction meant to appease them. In Dante's Inferno, all 3 appear at the gates of Dis, shrieking for Medusa and drenched in blood. Minos. Minos was a king of Crete in life, son of Zeus himself, and so just and fair ruler that after his death he was appointed one of 3 judges of the underworld alongside Acchus and Rhadamanthus. Souls arriving in the afterlife stood before these judges and were assigned to their appropriate fate based on how they lived. In Greek tradition, Minos was the senior judge, final and without appeal. Dante took significant creative liberty with him in the Inferno, transforming him into a grotesque demon whose serpentine tail wraps around his own body to indicate a soul's assigned circle. 2 coils meant the second circle, 3 meant the third, and so on down to the 9th. He sits at the entrance to the active underworld and listens to each soul confess its sins before passing judgment. Whatever mercy existed in the mythological Minos was entirely gone by the time Dante was finished with him. Tantalus. Tantalus was a king who had the extraordinary privilege of dining with the gods on Olympus, and he repaid that honor by killing his own son Pelops, cooking him, and serving him at a banquet to test whether the gods were truly omniscient. They were. The gods immediately recognized what they had been served, restored Pelops to life, and condemned Tantalus to one of mythology's most perfectly designed punishments. He was placed in a pool of clear water in Tartarus with branches of ripe fruit hanging directly above his head. Every time he bent to drink, the water drained away. Every time he reached for the fruit, the branches pulled upward out of reach. This is the origin of the word tantalize. He was never in danger of dying from thirst or hunger because he was already dead. He simply suffered the sensation of both forever, within arm's reach of relief that would never come. Sisyphus. Sisyphus was so clever he cheated death not once, but twice. The first time, he tricked and chained the god Thanatos, which had the side effect of making it impossible for anyone on Earth to die until the situation was resolved. The second time, he convinced Persephone to release him temporarily from the underworld by claiming he needed to return to Earth to punish his wife for improper burial rites, promising he would come right back. He did not come right back. He lived out the rest of a long natural life before finally being dragged back down. For these repeated violations of cosmic order, he was condemned to roll an enormous boulder up a steep hill in Tartarus for eternity, and every time he nears the top, it rolls back down to the bottom. The philosopher Albert Camus used Sisyphus as the central image in his 1942 essay on absurdism, arguing that one must imagine Sisyphus happy since the struggle itself is enough to fill a human heart. Hel. Hel is the ruler of Niflheim, the Norse realm of the dead, and she is the daughter of Loki and the giantess Angerboda, which already explains a great deal. Half of her body is that of a living woman, and the other half is rotting, described in various sources as pale blue, black, or the gray of a corpse. She presides over every soul that dies of illness, old age, or any cause other than combat and battle. Those warriors go to Valhalla, everyone else goes to Hell. Her hall is called Eljudnir, and according to the prose Edda, her dish is named Hunger, and her knife is named Famine. She is not particularly cruel, but she is absolutely unyielding. When Balder, the most beloved of the gods, died and the other gods begged her to release him, she agreed on one condition. Every being in all of creation had to weep for him. Every being did except one, Loki in disguise, and Hel kept Balder until Ragnarok. Nidhogg. Nidhogg, sometimes spelled Nidhogg, is a dragon or enormous serpent that has been gnawing at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree that holds all 9 realms together, since the beginning of time. It lives in Nastriand, the worst shore of Hell, where it feeds on the corpses of murderers, oath-breakers, and adulterers. While eagles and squirrels carry messages up and down Yggdrasil, Nidhogg gnaws from below, slowly weakening the foundations of existence itself. The Völuspá, a poem in the Poetic Edda, describes what happens after Ragnarok, when the world ends and is reborn, and Nidhogg is still there, flying through the new sky with corpses in its wings. It is one of very few beings in Norse mythology to survive the end of everything. Whatever the new world becomes, Nidhogg is already in it, carrying the dead, still hungry. Draugr. Draugr are the Norse undead, and they are considerably more dangerous than the shambling zombies of modern horror. These are the reanimated corpses of people who were evil, greedy, or improperly buried, and they return from their graves with superhuman strength, the ability to shapeshift, and a talent for spreading disease throughout entire communities. They are described as bloated, blue-black in color, and capable of growing to enormous size. They are also intelligent and malicious, not mindless. They guard their burial mounds with obsessive ferocity, attacking anyone who comes near the treasure buried with them. Killing one was not simple. You had to decapitate the body, burn it completely, and scatter or bury the ashes at sea to prevent reassembly. The Eyrbyggja saga documents a case of Draugr infestation in which the creatures killed and terrorized an entire household over an extended period before finally being dealt with through a formal legal proceeding held inside the farmhouse against the dead. Iblis. Iblis is the primary figure of evil in Islamic theology, and his origin story is one of the most dramatic acts of defiance in any religious tradition. When Allah created Adam from clay, every being was commanded to bow in recognition. Iblis refused. He was made of fire, he argued, and would not prostrate himself before something made of earth. For this refusal, he was expelled from paradise. But rather than accepting the punishment, he demanded something extraordinary. A reprieve until Judgment Day, during which he would dedicate himself entirely to leading humanity astray, proving that humans were unworthy of the honor Allah had shown them. The request was granted. Iblis is not equal to Allah in Islamic theology and has no power except what is permitted, but within those limits he operates with total commitment. Unlike a fallen angel, he was always a jinn. His ultimate defeat is already written. He simply has not arrived at that chapter yet. Belial. Belial's name in Hebrew means worthless or without value, and that etymology tells you exactly how he was regarded. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, which date to roughly the 2nd and 1st centuries BCE, Belial is not a minor demon, but the commander of the forces of darkness in an apocalyptic war against the forces of light, a cosmic military opponent of everything righteous. In the New Testament, 2 Corinthians 6:15 asks what accord Christ could possibly have with Belial, treating the name as the ultimate opposite of holiness. In the later medieval Ars Goetia, he becomes a king-level demon, one of the most powerful in the infernal hierarchy, said to have been among the first angels created and among the first to fall. He is associated with lawlessness, lust, and the corruption of the innocent, and according to the Ars Goetia, he arrives when summoned in a chariot of fire with 2 beautiful kings seated beside him. Aamon. Aamon is the 7th spirit listed in the Ars Goetia, ranked as a marquis of hell and commander of 40 infernal legions. He appears in 2 forms. First, as a wolf with a serpent for a tail, breathing fire, and second, as a man with the head of a raven and the teeth of a dog. His primary functions are practical in a twisted sort of way. He reconciles feuds, secures friends, reveals enemies, and provides knowledge of past and future events. His name and character are widely believed to be derived from the Egyptian god Amun, one of the most powerful deities in the ancient Egyptian pantheon, whose cult was gradually demonized as Christianity spread through the Mediterranean world. The transformation from supreme creator god to wolf-bodied fire-breathing demon of the 40 legions is one of the cleaner examples of how older religions got absorbed and inverted by the traditions that replaced them. Asmodeus. Asmodeus appears in the deuterocanonical Book of Tobit as a demon with a very specific and grim specialty. He kills men on their wedding nights. He murdered 7 successive husbands of a woman named Sarah before he was finally driven away by the smell of burning fish liver and heart, which is either the most anticlimactic defeat of a major demon in religious literature or evidence that ancient writers had a sense of humor. In later demonological tradition, Asmodeus became a king of hell commanding 72 legions and was associated with lust, gambling, and the destruction of marriages. The Ars Goetia describes him appearing with 3 heads, one of a bull, one of a man, and one of a ram, riding a dragon and breathing fire. He is paired with the deadly sin of lust in Peter Binsfeld's 1589 classification of demons, and his appearance in Tobit makes him one of the few named demons to appear in a text considered canonical by Catholic and Orthodox Christians. Baphomet. Baphomet first entered the historical record in 1098 during the Crusades, when the name appeared in letters describing a supposed idol. And the image became infamous in 1307 when the Knights Templar were accused during their trials of worshipping it in secret ceremonies. Whether any of that was true or a fabrication extracted under torture is still debated by historians. The version of Baphomet most people recognize today was created entirely by the French occultist Eliphas Lévy in 1856 in his book Dogme et rituel de la haute magie. A winged humanoid figure with a goat's head, a torch burning between the horns, one arm pointing upward and one downward, and an androgynous body meant to represent the union of opposites, male and female, light and dark, above and below. This single illustration became one of the most reproduced occult images in history, later adapted by the Satanic Temple for their famous statue. The creature went from a disputed accusation to a philosophical symbol to a pop culture icon in just under 2 centuries. Lilith. Lilith does not appear by name in the canonical Hebrew Bible, though Isaiah 34:14 references a night creature in the wilderness that some translations render as Lilith. The full story comes from the Alphabet of Ben Sirah, a medieval Jewish text which describes her as the first woman created alongside Adam, not from his rib but from the same earth, making her his equal. When Adam expected her to be subservient, she refused, spoke the name of God, and flew out of the Garden of Eden. She was replaced by Eve and became a demon of the night. It's associated with infant death, with the seduction of men in their sleep, and with the creation of countless demonic offspring called the Lilin through her unions with fallen angels. Amulets inscribed with the names of 3 angels were placed in the rooms of newborns to protect them from her. In later centuries, particularly in feminist scholarship, she was reinterpreted as a symbol of autonomy. Her reputation depends entirely on which tradition is telling the story. Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles is not a figure from scripture. He is a creature of literature, emerging from German folk tradition and reaching his definitive form in Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's Faust, published in 2 parts in 1808 and 1832. Where most demons are straightforwardly malevolent, Mephistopheles is something stranger, sophisticated, witty, and almost enjoyable to spend time with, which is precisely what makes him dangerous. In Goethe's version, he describes himself as part of that power which always wills evil and always does good, implying he functions as a necessary force in the cosmic order, even while working against it. He makes a deal with the scholar Faust, offering unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasure in exchange for his soul, and the arrangement is far more complicated than either party anticipated. His name's origin is genuinely unknown, with theories pointing to Hebrew, Greek, and German roots, none of them definitive. He is the template for virtually every charming devil in Western fiction that came after him. Pazuzu. Pazuzu is the king of the wind demons in ancient Assyrian and Babylonian mythology, son of Hambi, and he is responsible for bringing famine during dry seasons and locust plagues during the rainy ones. His appearance is a deliberate assembly of threatening features: a dog's face, an eagle's talons, a scorpion's tail, 2 pairs of wings, and a serpentine body, usually depicted in a forward-rushing posture. What makes Pazuzu genuinely unusual in the history of demonic figures is that he was simultaneously feared and actively invoked as protection. Amulets bearing his image are among the most commonly found objects in Mesopotamian archaeological sites, worn specifically to ward off Lamashtu, the female demon who preyed on pregnant women and infants. Pazuzu was considered one of the few beings she feared. A creature of disease and disaster was also the best available shield against something worse. He became globally famous in 1973 as the possessing demon in The Exorcist, though the film's version bears little resemblance to the original. Lamashtu. Lamashtu was considered the most feared female demon in ancient Mesopotamia, and the volume of archaeological material dedicated to stopping her confirms that fear was widespread and serious. She was the daughter of the sky god Anu, which made her more powerful than ordinary demons. And she used that power specifically against the most vulnerable: pregnant women, newborns, and infants. She is depicted in bronze plaques as a figure with a lion or dog's head, the talons of a bird, and the teeth of a donkey, nursing a pig and a dog at her breasts while wading through water. She crept into houses to steal infants, drinking their blood and gnawing their bones. A 3-tablet series of cuneiform incantations known as the Lamashtu tablets was dedicated entirely to rituals for repelling her. The recommended solution often involved invoking Pazuzu, since she feared him. Amulets, incantations, and protective figurines against Lamashtu have been found across the ancient Near East, making her one of the best documented demons in all of ancient religion. Oni. Oni are the demonic enforcers of Jigoku, the Japanese Buddhist underworld, and they have been a fixture of Japanese folklore for well over 1,000 years. They are enormous, typically standing far above human height, with muscular bodies, wild hair, 1 or 2 horns, and skin that is traditionally red or blue, each color associated with different attributes and temperaments. They carry iron clubs called kanebo, and their job in Jigoku is to carry out punishments on sinners under the authority of Emma-O, the judge of the dead, a role not unlike the Furies or the Diu demons of Chinese tradition. Outside the underworld, Oni appear in Japanese festivals and folk stories in remarkably varied roles, sometimes as monsters to be repelled, sometimes as reformed figures associated with strength and protection. During the Setsubun festival, celebrated annually on the day before the traditional start of spring, people throw roasted soybeans while shouting demons out, good luck in, a tradition observed across Japan to this day. Oxhead and Horseface. Oxhead and Horseface, known in Chinese as Nutu and Mammon, are the first beings a soul encounters immediately after death in Chinese mythology, and that first encounter sets the tone for everything that follows. Nutua has the head of an ox on an enormous armored human body. Mammon has a horse's head on the same imposing frame. Both carry chains. They serve under Yanlua Wang, the Chinese king of hell, and their function is bureaucratic rather than sadistic, they locate newly dead souls and escort them to the underworld for judgment. Diu, the Chinese hell, is an elaborate multi-layered system of courts, judges, and punishments. And these two are its primary field agents. The same pair appears in Japanese tradition as Gozu and Mezu, performing the same function in a slightly different cosmological framework, suggesting the concept spread along with Buddhism throughout East Asia. They are not cruel by nature. They are simply thorough. Azazel. Azazel appears in the Hebrew Bible in Leviticus 16, where on Yom Kippur, one of two goats was sent into the wilderness for Azazel, while the other was sacrificed to God. Whether Azazel was understood as a demon, a place, or a concept remains a genuine scholarly debate that has not been resolved. In the Book of Enoch, a Second Temple Jewish text not included in the standard Hebrew canon, Azazel becomes one of the Watchers, fallen angels who descended to earth, took human wives, and taught humanity forbidden knowledge. Azazel's specific curriculum included the crafting of weapons, swords, shields, and breastplates. He also taught the arts of cosmetics and jewelry. The Book of Enoch holds him uniquely responsible for the corruption of humanity, more so than any other fallen angel, and his punishment is to be bound and buried under rocks in the desert until Judgment Day, sealed away from the world he helped ruin. Moloch. Moloch is one of the most condemned figures in the Hebrew Bible, with multiple passages in Leviticus, Kings, and Jeremiah explicitly forbidding the practice of passing children through fire to Moloch, describing it as one of the most severe violations possible. Whether this referred to literal child sacrifice or a ritual of firewalking and dedication is a question that modern archaeology has not fully resolved, with the Tophet burial sites in Carthage at the center of ongoing scholarly debate. In later Christian demonology, Moloch became a senior prince of hell, associated specifically with the sacrifice of the innocent. John Milton in Paradise Lost, published in 1667, depicts him as the most warlike of Satan's lieutenants, a demon so consumed by carnage that he misses heaven only because heaven had no enemies to destroy. That image of a vast bronze bull-headed furnace with arms extended to receive offerings became the dominant visual, even if its historical accuracy is questionable. Mammon. Mammon begins in Aramaic simply as a word meaning wealth or riches, appears in Matthew 6:24, where Jesus states that no one can serve both God and Mammon, and through that single sentence gradually transformed over centuries into a fully realized demonic figure. By 1589, Peter Binsfeld had formalized the classification, pairing Mammon as the demon, corresponding specifically to the deadly sin of greed. John Milton gave him the most vivid literary treatment in Paradise Lost, describing him as the fallen angel who, even in heaven, always walked with his eyes downward, admiring the gold beneath his feet rather than looking toward God, and who was the first to teach the angels to mine heaven's floor for its riches. He now commands a recognizable symbolic position in Western culture as the embodiment of wealth pursued without moral limit, which is perhaps why his name appears regularly in political and economic criticism, most famously in Allen Ginsberg's Howl. Beelzebub. Beelzebub's name derives from the Philistine deity Baal-zebub, meaning Lord of the Flies, referenced in 2 Kings 1 and 2, when King Ahaziah of Israel sends messengers to consult this foreign god after an injury. In the New Testament, Matthew 12:24 records the Pharisees accusing Jesus of casting out demons by the power of Beelzebub, describing him there as the prince of demons, which established his position near the very top of any infernal hierarchy. In later demonological tradition, he is ranked second only to Lucifer himself, or in some systems used interchangeably with Satan as a name for the same entity. He is associated with flies, decay, disease, gluttony, and pride. The image of a vast rotting figure surrounded by a roaring cloud of black flies became standard in art and literature. William Golding chose him deliberately for the title of Lord of the Flies in 1954, where the pig's head that the boys begin to worship becomes a literal physical manifestation of the demon's domain. Leviathan. Leviathan is described in Job 41 with a specificity that suggests whatever the author had in mind, they wanted you to understand it was completely beyond human capacity to fight or contain. Its scales are described as impenetrable shields locked together. It breathes fire. It causes the sea to boil simply by moving through it. Swords, spears, and arrows accomplish nothing. Isaiah 27:1 calls it the fleeing serpent and the twisting serpent, and promises it will be slain by God at the end of days. In medieval demonology, Leviathan became a prince of hell associated with envy, one of the 7 deadly sins in Peter Binsfeld's 1589 classification. Some scholars connect the figure to Lotan, a chaos serpent from Ugaritic mythology predating the Hebrew Bible, suggesting the creature was adapted from an existing Canaanite tradition. Thomas Hobbes borrowed the name in 1651 for his political philosophy treatise, arguing that the all-powerful sovereign state was itself a kind of Leviathan, vast and impossible to resist. Astaroth. Astaroth almost certainly began as Astarte, the Canaanite goddess of love, war, and the evening star, one of the most widely worshipped deities in the ancient Near East, and a direct equivalent to the Mesopotamian Ishtar. As Christianity spread and older religious traditions were absorbed and inverted, Astarte became Astaroth, a Grand Duke of Hell listed as the 29th spirit in the Ars Goetia, commander of 40 legions of demons. The transformation from goddess to male demon is one of the most complete reversals in the history of demonology. In the Ars Goetia, Astaroth arrives riding a dragon and carrying a viper, breathing such foul breath that the summoner must hold a magic ring to their nose to avoid being overwhelmed. He is willing to answer questions about the past, present, and future, teach any of the liberal sciences, and reveal the secrets of other demons, all of which makes him one of the more informative demons available if you can survive the smell. Valac. Valac, also spelled Valac or Volai, is listed in the Ars Goetia as the 62nd spirit of hell, and the original description is almost absurdly far from the figure most people know today. The grimoire describes Valac as a small boy with angel-like wings, riding a 2-headed dragon, commanding 38 legions of demons, and specializing in locating hidden treasures and delivering serpents to whoever summons him. That is the entirety of the traditional demonological profile. The pale white demonic nun with hollow eyes from the 2018 film The Nun and the broader Conjuring franchise is a Hollywood creation with no basis in any historical text or religious tradition. The name was selected and the appearance invented for dramatic effect. What makes Valac an interesting case is how completely popular culture has overridden the source material, to the point where most people who recognize the name have no idea what the original actually looked like. Barbatos. Barbatos is one of the more unusual entries in the Ars Goetia, where he appears as the 8th spirit, an Earl and Duke of Hell commanding 30 legions. While most demons in the grimoire specialize in destruction, deception, or forbidden knowledge, Barbatos offers something genuinely peculiar: the ability to understand the language of animals. Birds, dogs, horses, all of them become comprehensible to whoever he assists. He also knows the past and future, can reconcile friends who have fallen out, and is said to appear when the sun is in Sagittarius, accompanied by 4 noble kings and their companies of troops. He is typically depicted in the form of a great hunter or archer, arriving in the manner of a lord of the forest rather than a lord of fire and brimstone. His name may derive from the Latin barbatus, meaning the bearded one, though the etymology is not confirmed. He stands as a reminder that the infernal hierarchy of the grimoires is a strange and highly specific bureaucracy, not a simple army of evil. Abaddon. Abaddon is one of the very few demonic figures explicitly named in the New Testament, which gives him a different kind of authority than demons known only from grimoires or apocryphal texts. Revelation 9:11 identifies him as the king of the locusts from the bottomless pit, and gives both his names, Abaddon in Hebrew, Apollyon in Greek, both meaning destroyer. The locusts he commands are described in Revelation 9:7 through 9:10 as wearing crowns of gold, having human faces, women's hair, lion's teeth, wings that roar like chariots, and scorpion tails capable of tormenting people for 5 months. The vision is one of the most surreal passages in Scripture. In the book of Job, Abaddon appears earlier not as a being but as a place, synonymous with the realm of the dead, suggesting the name evolved from a location into a ruler over centuries of theological development. John Bunyan brought him into English literature in The Pilgrim's Progress in 1678, where the hero Christian must fight him directly in a battle described in vivid physical detail. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.